Good morning, everyone who's
Good mo-
present. This is the morning. Good morning, Jude. You're on.
Good. Thank you. Good morning.
Frank, if you could please mute yourself, we'd appreciate it. This is a special Board of Selectmen meeting, May 7th, 2025. And in the room is Selectman Jim Lamppost for Selectwoman Martha Shoemaker, and Selectwoman Jude Reed is kind enough to dial in. So we are good to go. And our first old business on this is the ordinance review for harbor management. So we are going to review this. That goes through. And Jim, I believe you are, I'm going to let you take the lead on this as we go through it. And Jude, you jump in if you have any questions or concerns. Okay. We kind of
Great.
thought, Jude, do you have a copy in front of you?
I do. I have
Okay.
I have the two copies.
Okay.
One with the additions and one and the old one. So
all right. So I'm looking at the one that has the additions in red.
Okay.
That we were looked at the other day.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. So I suggested that we kind of go through it section by section, not line by line, but section by section, just so that we're all in agreement. So if we start with the title, I don't think we have any, that was already part of the old ordinance, and section A for under 58.2 was also under the old ordinance. And then we get to section B, and that was added. And this is one of the topics that was not provided to Soundview Commission when they looked at this and approved this ordinance revision to come before the Board of Selectmen. Correct. So and I have spoken to the harbor master. I spoke to Mike Presti. They both agreed that this section can come out and it's not going to change anything. Jim, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I concur. I had another discussion, well, the first discussion with Mike Barnes on it. And he saw the point that we're trying to make. But we haven't had updated language yet, and it's late in the day. So I would suggest taking it out and revisiting it separately, since there isn't a time constraint on the upland question. There is a time constraint on the enforcement of the ordinances. So, we'd like that in place for the summer. We can take that question on separately and in its due time. But I think, he makes a point that they should probably, something like Pilgrim's Landing and, Town Landing, that they should be able to control the parking facilities there and, the upland that there is, because it's a completely dedicated boat launch. But we need to work on that language. So I think taking those parts out that we talked about would be a good idea. So it's a good ordinance. We can get that on the books for the summer. We'd be in good shape. Do you have a hard copy on hand? Thank you.
I agree with you about most of this. And of course, the public areas like Pilgrim's Landing, I agree with keeping them there. The only issue I had at this point was with a revision was Horseneck Creek, where it's supposed to be a collaboration of harbor management and open space. And therefore, I don't think harbor management should have complete control there. I think a lot of work was done on this ordinance and has so much value. My concern would be that we schedule and keep active the revisions, Jim, and we put it in our next meeting. I don't want to kick these things down the road by 6 months or a year, the revisions, if we have to leave them out. I know I've spoken to some people and there seems to be dissatisfaction among the, or disagreement. Terry Lewis has one opinion, and I have not spoken to Mike Presti, and I understand they are co-chairs.
So I think our best move here is to take out section B at this time, because we want to move the rest of it especially for the enforcement along the shoreline for the Memorial Day. So we need to get that to the May 19th meeting. This other areas we can do, and we are definitely going to have another town meeting at some point over the summer because of the sewer project. So we will have other things to vote on. So I think that section B comes out for this particular town meeting, and we can revisit the language moving forward.
I support that as long as we keep it current and keep all parties involved in the conversation.
I agree with that.
Okay, and I do think that it is encouraging that harbor management, along with Matt, have taken the bull by the horns on this, and they have been working long and hard on it. So let's just keep it current and moving forward.
Okay, so then we go down to appointment of harbor master. That's old, that's okay. Fee schedule has some changes in it on 58-4, that moorings would be going up. The maximum annual fee for a mooring or anchorage shall be $200 instead of $100. I'm okay with that. Jim, you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay.
That's good. Okay. 58-5 had no changes. Speed and wake regulations on A. 58-6. And while the change is additionally, no person shall operate a personal watercraft at a speed in excess of a slow wake, no wake within 200 feet of shore, dock, pier, float, swim zone, or moored vessel. I'm in agreement with that.
I'm okay.
Jim?
Yep.
Okay. B, there were no changes. C, was a change of no person shall operate a motorboat in excess of slow, no wake in the Lieutenant River, Back River, Duck River, or Black Hole River, or any flooded land, tidal flat, or unnamed tributary associated therewith, east of a line running generally southward from the westernmost point of Ferry Landing. I think the rest of you can read this. And purposes of this section, the definition of slow, no wake shall be same, and et cetera. And I have no problem with that. Jim, you good?
I'm good with that.
I'm
D?
good. Yes, I'm fine.
Okay. D also works about the boat lane. Is this one of the contested paragraphs, Jim?
This went through deep. This language actually came from deep.
Okay. Okay. And the 35-foot boat lane, so-called, is good?
Yep.
Okay. Are you good with D, Jude?
I am. Thank you.
Okay. And we go over, that's all one section. Okay. Then we go to 58-7. A is the old section. B is the one of the contested paragraphs. So that is one of the contested ones that we need to work on. So I think this is one of the ones that comes out and we can work with over the summer to put into a plan, et cetera. Are you okay with taking that out, Jim?
Yes.
Jude?
I think so. Why, Jim, can you explain to me why people are unhappy with this?
This is one of the three provisions that was put in after the SVC review. And that we didn't see until Friday, and particularly the part that says in the harbor management plan, as they pertain to maintenance, improvement, and management of town-owned upland support parcels and town-owned water access points, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay,
So
I got it.
It's part of that redefinition.
Okay.
Okay,
And I,
so-
again, I think it's going to be important that we identify specifically which of the properties something like that would be included and which ones are not.
That was the discussion I had last night with Mike Presti and Matt. Each property has its own unique
situations.
So we need to call those out almost individually.
Okay, I'm good with that.
And then penalties for offenses in 58-8, there is a charge of any provision of this chapter shall, upon conviction thereof, be punished by a fine of $150
Mhm.
unless it is a continuing violation in which the fine may be $150 per day. And then section B of that, any person who violates 58-6 or 58-6D, C or D will be fined, subject to a fine of $150 for the first offense, $250 for the second offense, and $350 for each offense thereafter. We good with those?
I'm good.
So,
I'm good.
I think I'm good. If someone has a violation in the morning, comes back in the same day, are we limited to only 150 per day per section A? Or would it be 2 offenses in one day?
Well, it seems the rate says it could be 150 for the first time, then for 150 per day. It looks like the fine can only be up to 150 per day.
Right.
But if it's that is a little unclear.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it, let's just look at this. In section B, they charge 150, 250, 350, right? So
Right.
that's $750. So
Right.
maybe what it should be, in which case the fines punished by a fine of 150 unless it's a continuing violation, in which case the fine may be up to $750 per day.
I think that change would be good because given the mobility of the fine, people can come and go. And hey, if it's 150 per day, that's cheap parking down at the beach.
Well, for water and with a water view.
Yeah. So I think it should be increased because if you're going to be a repeat offender, if I get a speeding ticket this morning and I go out and do it again this afternoon and again tonight, I would expect to be fined for each of those offenses.
Okay.
Okay.
Jim, are you good with that?
I'll accept that.
Okay. There are no changes under liability swimming.
One more quick thing.
Sure.
In B, 58-8B, the Soundview Commission flagged one additional provision. They said 5831 should be added to that list, and that's discharge.
Yes.
58-31, and that's the escalating fines.
Is that in 58? Wait a minute. I
Yeah,
gotta
let
go
me
back
just
to 30.
read
Discharge
that.
of refuse. Yeah.
Discharge of refuse.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So to have those escalating fines under
Penalties for offenses,
So
right?
we will add that. So
5831.
okay.
Yeah.
They did pick up, we suggested 58-6D, and they did pick up on that, but they did not pick up on the 58-31.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we're
Ready.
good to add the 58-31 discharge.
Mhm.
All right. Then we're moving the rest of that page, liability swimming, water
Mhm.
skiing, fishing, and underwater, no changes. And use
Right.
of vessel as an abode also does not change. The next page is 15 through 18. Also, the only changes on that was 58-18, where the town attorney suggested that we correctly call out the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and Matt made that change.
Okay.
Okay, so the next page is 58-19 and through the bottom of 58-20, the top of 58-24, there have been no changes on that page. Next page, the only changes is again in 58-25C, which we note that it's a Connecticut registration or a Connecticut certificate of a decal shall be recorded. And we took out a sentence about the description of a vessel and is not necessary for beachfront property owners.
Okay.
Good there.
I'm fine with that.
No changes with D and E. And then we go to 58-26, which talks about mooring permits. And they have added a line in that says landlords must inform the harbor master of dates and vessels
Yes.
allowed to use the mooring. Anyone have a problem with that?
No problem.
None.
Okay. No changes in B, C, D. E is application forms. We're changing that to make it online. We talk about dates between January 15th and February 15th, and we talk about that it will be a receipt of a complete application. Everyone good with that?
Yep.
I am.
No changes in F. G, mooring placement. Mark the mooring float with the applicant's last name and weight of anchor, all in 2-inch letters of contrasting color. We good with that?
Good.
Sounds good. I can't imagine fitting all that on the buoy, but that's their problem.
And then H, permit dates. We've added the word issue, and we've changed the dates to December of the year issued. Good with that?
Yes.
Good.
I, registration of mooring space. Again, changes in number 1. Basically, we're changing dates. Good there.
Yes.
I'm good.
We go, no changes on the next page from 5827 through 5829. For some reason, mine are out of order. Why do I have 5826? Why is 5826 added on here? 5830 is the next one. Our 5826 has a change in D. Added a D. Appeals, any person aggrieved by a decision of the harbor master may appeal to the Connecticut Deep. Are we good there?
Yep.
Yes.
And then removal of moorings, which is, I think, is so important,
Yes.
is 58-30. Any changes on that for either of you?
No.
No.
Okay. We get to
5826, is that out of order?
yeah, it seems to be out of
Or
order.
is that just misnumbered?
I think it's either misnumbered 58-26. I'll have to go back to their original one. It could be a misnumber.
It's a misnumber.
It's just
Because
it's not there. Yeah.
Yeah, it should, that should be
Exactly.
58-29.
It's 29.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's, so it's
Got it.
still the continuation
It's
of
the
C.
continuation.
I got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's in the right order. It's just misnumbered.
Okay. And then discharge of refuge, one big change, just adding the word overboard discharge. And then 5832, no changes under safety. Terminology, we get into the one part under slip where the town-owned water access points, and that's again one of those contested issues that I believe needs to be removed at this present time.
I agree.
That's part of what the conversation we had at the beginning, correct?
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
And that'll be continued to be discussed going further. And then the last one is in 5833. Again, we call out the State Department of Energy Environmental Protection correctly, thanks to the attorney and Matt who made all the changes. So can I get a motion to approve this with the changes made?
Small
Oh.
correction, that very last page,
Yep,
it's 5834.
it's supposed to be 5834. Thank you. It is, you're right. Thank you. Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the changes listed.
Judy?
I'll second. Can we have a conversation now?
Sure.
I would like to, I agree with the motion, but I'd like to put a contingency on this that we act on it by the 4th of July. The changes, so that we can use it for the rest of the summer and then therefore put it out for town meeting at the next upcoming town meeting. I don't want this to die on the vine, those questions.
Jude, I don't have a problem, but I don't think we're going to have another town meeting by the 4th of July.
No, but I would like for us to work on the goal of having those revisions or additions worked on before the 4th of July so that we will have a draft for our next meeting.
I
Town
would
meeting.
agree. I would agree with Jude. I'd agree with initiating the conversation. I don't I don't know that we can commit to having an agreement by the 4th of July because we don't know how the conversation is going to go. I've
Okay.
had very reasonable conversations with people and some that are very intransigent. So, but I think we should have the discussion right away. And I agree it should be, by the 4th of July, we should have substantive progress on it.
That wordage is fine, or verbiage, and I'd like to make sure that we keep it active. So if we
agree.
have to revisit it and just get an update at each of our selectmen meetings, I'd appreciate that.
I agree.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
So the amended motion then, Jim, can you make the motion again with the amendment that you agree to?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the harbor ordinance with the changes that we discussed, and with the provision that we begin a discussion immediately on the upland control of specified parcels for harbor management, and that we, in good faith, try to make substantive progress by the 4th of July.
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, let's call for a vote. All those in favor of the amended harbor management ordinance, Old Lyme Harbor ordinance, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, the next one up is the Soundview parking. I just want to make sure I have the right one in front of me. Hold on. Yeah, yes, great. Yep, no,
I have it.
hold on, I'm just making sure I have the right one in front of me. I do. Okay, so my copy starts with 161-8. Everybody
Correct.
agree?
Yes.
Okay,
Amended 525.
yes.
Yes.
So we have some changes by our lawyer, which if you all have it, you have the changes that Mike Carey's comments on the right-hand side is.
Yes,
Do you have that copy?
I do.
Okay, so basically, he does talk about leased permitted lots in here. Applying the ordinance to it, leased permitted lots, and I'm just trying to find the line where he thus I do not comment on the application form for those lots either. Okay, I'm sorry. But it's not traffic parking for off-street parking and private parking situated on the town of Old Lyme for the purpose of protecting and promoting the safety, health, and general welfare. So do we want another sentence in here about leased lots, or do we want to add leased lots to the traffic parking regulations for off-street parking, private property, and we could also state for leased lots, leased permitted lots?
Yeah, I think personally it should be added under the general parking regulations, 161-10.
Okay,
And we could call it number 4 under provision G.
161-10,
Yeah.
want it under G?
Yeah,
Okay.
or we could have it standing alone. Because leased lots will have an exemption for an attendant, basically.
Exactly.
Would you, so we would say, how would you like to say that? How would you like to use the wording, Jim, to make this successful?
I was hoping that Mike Carey was going to come up with some legalese on it, but
Okay, so
short of
just-
that, I can take a quick crack at it right now.
Well, wait a second. I think I'm just looking to see if Mr. Soundview Commission sent us some changes.
He had sent us,
He had made a suggestion, I know,
he
or
had
He
recent,
said,
yes,
the Board of Selectmen have provided for permitted private lots to be leased by businesses for their patrons' exclusive use with certain conditions. It's not our intention to hinder business, considering the leased lots would be for business patron only. And the business is responsible for the use. It would be reasonable to allow these leased lots to operate without a physical attendant from opening of the lot to its closing. And the lot's hours of operation to be defined or tied to and not more than the open hours of operation of the leasing business.
yeah, so that can be condensed and just say
Mhm.
leased lots. I don't have that language in front of me, but lots leased by businesses for their exclusive use by their patrons. Are
excuse me, Jim,
Yeah.
where it says, where you're saying exclusive use by patrons, should we or could we include and their employees?
and their employees. That's
Okay,
good.
so
Yeah.
Okay.
leased lots for businesses will be used for the exclusive use of their patrons and employees.
And fees cannot be charged for parking.
And fees cannot be charged for parking.
Their hours of operation will be tied to the hours of, will not exceed the hours of business operating hours.
The hours of operation will not exceed the hours of operation. I
And
do have a question on that. I'm gonna stop. I'm like, and then just say, and no fees can be, no parking fees can be
right,
Charge.
instituted.
and they are exempt from having an on-site
Attendant.
provision.
They are exempt. Well, I'm gonna tell you that there are some people who are concerned about that because of the fact that some of these lots are actually managed by the same operator, but one is paid and one is not paid lot. And we also have some of our police force here. We have Officer Collins and Resident State Trooper Matt Weber are here. And I'd just like to ask about, as far as, are there problems on those lots that if a leased lot by a business that's used for their patrons or their employees, have you seen any issues of concern that you want to draw to our attention before we write all this in? Yeah, sure. So just because the speaker's here, so it'll record better.
Again, I'm Matt Weber, I'm the resident trooper. I will throw a concern in there for not having an attendant. We did have multiple issues last year at the Kokomo's lot where we had underage drinking going on, and then a lot of littering. And we also had people parking there that were not using the business. So that does concern me that no one's going to be there in attendance.
How about if they offer some sort of patrolling map, but not having to be there physically, say for 12 hours?
So Jude, the only thing is they run the one that's north, I mean, is it east of that lot, just
Right.
up the other end? And there has to be someone at that lot. So that person should really be monitoring both lots.
I agree with that.
Because
Okay.
the lot at the top is one of the lots gets a permit, a regular permit.
Okay.
It's not used for, and they can charge at that lot. So I would say that somebody has to monitor. I would say that someone has to monitor these lots as well, because especially too, talk about the fact that it's going to be only for hours of operation, but we also have people who sometimes are at these establishments and may not be able to drive,
Exactly.
and that car may sit there overnight because someone is being safe and doesn't want to put their life or the life of their friends at risk. So they leave it there overnight, which I'm fine with because I don't want them on the roads.
Correct. So can the person who is babysitting the lot, for lack of a better word, can they do double duty, Matt? Would that be sufficient, or do they have to have a separate attendant for each lot?
I'm fine with the one that does both lots as long as they're paying attention to it. Because I found that role kind of was bestowed upon us last year. And obviously that's not what it's meant to be. But if we did not monitor the lot, it would again
Right.
spill out into our area, and then it'd be our problem anyways. So I think if they just paid a little more attention, I think we would be fine there.
What if we put a special clause in that
Right.
says that permitted lots that are adjacent to leased lots can be monitored by the same person?
Right, which implies that they, or must be, someone has to monitor. If they choose to give that job to one person instead of two, that's their choice, but both lots have to be monitored.
And also, that's also for the businesses benefit as well, because you'd have people sneaking in there parking illegally.
Of course.
So that's also to benefits the business as well. And we did have that issue last year as well.
Okay.
And can we bring Frank into this conversation?
Frank, I know you're on the line, Mr. Papalardo, so I know you have a lot of thoughts on this. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, sure. The lot on Hartford Avenue, the one that Matt had referred to, the Kokomo's lot, that is not a permitted lot. That's actually part of their zoning. That was a zoning approved lot. That lot is, that's my knowledge, as part of the zoning approval, requires an attendant. And that lot, as I believe, as part of their zoning approval, requires an attendant, period.
So
Okay.
that,
So
No question.
actually, Matt, it's actually a moot point regarding that lot, if they
Right.
actually abide by the zoning regulation.
So if there's no attendant, we can get Eric Knapp down there to enforce,
Yeah,
Well, actually, last year I had to go in and enforce.
or
Yeah.
or Martha.
I would prefer not to do, I would prefer not to do that again on Memorial Day weekend, but I think that
I think
I
the
think
whole
we-
issue, here is that the businesses have to be responsible for whatever lot they lease. They have to be responsible. They have to take on the responsibility. And if there's a problem, they inherit the problem, period. So if they want to put a potty there, that's fine. If they want to patrol it periodically, whatever's going to maintain that lot in a safe manner.
so they need to be called out when they are violating.
Most definitely.
Okay.
and we get to that for penalties for offense in the next section.
And Frank, you're okay with this compromise?
Well, I don't know if the zoning laws say that lot has to be.
Well, that's not the only.
I know, I understand. So you want to keep the permitted lots that are adjacent?
Yeah, well, for that one, it's, or we can say, unless zoning requires otherwise.
Permitted lots or adjacent must be monitored by attendant unless noted in zoning regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Frank, you had mentioned that a lot of these ordinances were contingent on businesses getting this relief. Do you think that this compromise will?
Yeah,
will work?
I think that The issue here is we don't want to inhibit business or hinder it in any way, shape, or form. So if a business is responsible and they lease a lot,
Right.
and we have had lots leased by businesses, and they monitor their lot in some way, shape, or form, then it's a good thing for everybody.
Right.
Okay,
But to have a body, physical body at a leased lot for 12 hours or 15 hours, it may not be cost effective for them. So therefore, that's the reason for the relief.
okay.
Okay. So we get into, and Matt, how do you enforce this? If somebody, how, are you able to enforce this? When we have an ordinance,
Correct.
so when you get into a fine for a violation, how are you able to, what do you do?
So the first one is a verbal warning to the lot owner, and then there's increase in fines after that.
This next section, which is in the old ordinance, says that the first violation is $100. The second, and $100 for each day that the violation continues. My personal feeling is that we should up each day to $200 because those
Mhm.
people are making a lot of money and they could just pay us off
Right.
$100 a day for the violation. I don't think that.
I think it's worth escalating it, yes.
So the first fine is $200 for the violation and then $200 for each day after that it continues. Okay.
Okay, is there, and then it says, upon repeated violations, a parking permit may be subject to revocation. Do we have a time limit on that? So if you violate 5 times, we're gonna shut you down? It sounds purely subjective.
Yeah, what's somebody's definition of repeated? What if we said upon 5 repeated violations? I wouldn't even say maybe, I said shall be.
Yeah, I
Revoked.
agree with that, Martha.
Upon 5 repeated violations, the parking permit will be, shall be, lawyers like shall be revoked by the Board of Selectmen.
And then they'd have
Okay.
to appeal to reinstitute it.
Right.
You don't have to add that, but agreed.
Well, B talks about that they can appeal, I think, that they
Exactly. Okay,
violation 161-10.
okay.
I'm just making sure this is clear. Okay,
$100 a day is a small price to pay, so yes, I agree.
okay, so when we get to C, there is a change, the violation for any use of private property in old line for parking of vehicles for a fee without such property having been designated as defined by 161-9. And that fee is upgraded to, it cannot be more than $250 a day
Okay,
under the Connecticut general statutes. So we have to switch that one down to $250.
okay.
Now, $250 per day. Second and a subsequent same property should be $1,000 a day. I don't think we can do that.
No,
It can only be $250 a day.
okay.
Okay. Okay, then we get into at the bottom of page 4, we talk about each parking lot must have an owner or designated physical attendant. Mike notes that the parking of the parking business or of the property. So is it the owner of the property or the owner of the parking business?
And many times it'll be one and the same, I expect. Other times, no.
Well, I know of 2 cases where it's leased,
Okay,
so
So
I think it would have to be the,
how about if we just slash it? Owner / parking business owner.
make it
Owner.
and or.
Why don't we just say property owner? Or parking business owner?
Fine by me.
Or the designated physical attendant.
Correct.
Okay, so one of three have to be there. The
Mhm.
rest of the red was added in. I don't have a problem with the rest
No.
of that. We go to page 5, or, sorry, it's 3. Mine is all numbered incorrectly. I guess I skipped. Oh, no, we did. We're good. Okay, page 5, follows through.
Mhm.
Mike believes that the last sentence at the top of the page, he says, is this necessary to the purpose? He thinks the last sentence says, it's somewhat confusing to him as an attorney. That says, I'm going to read it in its entirety. Each public parking lot must have, we just changed this to property owner or parking business owner or designated physical attendant on the site from opening of the lot to its closing to ensure that all rules and regulations are complied with and have the capability to contact public safety in an emergency situations. This is required of all lots, whether charges are collected by the owner attendant or charges are collected electronically by other means. That would
don't
be
see-
part of our, and that would be part of our parking lot. So our
I don't-
our rangers would have to be in the lots as well.
I don't see any harm in leaving this in. Is it necessary? Maybe not. But
He said just feels that the wording is confusing.
I like it because it covers everything.
I think it is necessary because some
Mhm.
lots do have an attendant.
Yep.
A lot of the private lots on Portland tend to.
Yep.
But if everyone switches over to the passport system or whatever, electronic system,
Okay,
they may
this
make an
covers it.
argument that we don't need to be there, so we want to cover our bases there.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if now we had in our original notes, and what Frank sent us, the lease lot exemption under H, but I'm wondering if it fits better here. Because we specifically talk about attendance here.
So you want to move G?
Move what we just had. To this section instead.
So make it H and not G. This is misnumbered.
Yeah, it is.
I
But
realize that.
Well, moving it from where we just had it
mhm.
down to 161.12 D, and we'll make it number 2.
161-12 D.
Right.
All right, so this becomes 161. So the lease lot
So-
paragraph is going to be 161-12 D.
Well, it'd be part of it. It would just be added on to 161.
Yeah.
12D, number 1. It would be tacked on to the end of number 1, basically, under that section.
Okay,
So our page 5.
Correct.
At the end of that first paragraph, we would tack on the lease lots where they can use an attendant at an adjacent lot.
That works.
so where do you want to put, are we keeping the lease lots for businesses and exclusively up there?
Yeah, we should keep that up there.
Yes.
So this still becomes G.
Right.
Okay, you're confusing me, Jim.
Sorry.
All right, but then we're going to put permitted lots. No, not that. Which one do you want to put? Lease lots?
The attendant. Since this is the section that we actually talk about attendance.
All right, Jim, and Jude, I'm gonna have Jim draw me some arrows of where he's moving something after this because I don't see it. I'm
Okay.
having a hard time following along, but we'll figure this out and put it into play. We'll send
Okay.
a draft. I'll send a draft once I retype.
Of course.
You want to put this, and I'm just trying to say, you want this part?
paragraph, yeah.
Yes. And where do you want to put this?
Moved there.
To here,
Yeah, because that's where we talk about
the
attendance.
den. Okay. All right, so we're gonna
So we
move.
just have the attendance all in one place, basically.
Okay, got it. All right, and then 2, Each parking lot must have its ingress, egress areas clearly marked and be secured by metal chain or similar type and lock. Chain must also include a sign not to exceed 9 by 18 in size, noting lot is closed. We good with that?
I'm fine with it. Yes,
And do we want the gates locked when the lots are closed?
yes.
Okay. Okay, no parking lot is allowed to display any type of feather flag per section 19 of the Old Lyme zoning regs. These type flags are not permitted in the town of Old Lyme. We're good with that?
Yes.
Do we
Okay.
ban the blow up guy? You know, the,
Parking lots may have additional rules, regulations in certain areas of town that must be complied with for those areas of special events or seasonal uses. Mike doesn't think that's clear. He's suggesting that we say that areas licensed under this chapter 161 are now exempt from and must also comply with the rules and regulations imposed by another private or governmental entity with jurisdiction.
I have no problem with that. What he is recommending.
So it would say parking areas licensed under this chapter 161 are now exempt from, shouldn't it say are not exempt from?
yeah,
It should say are not
I think
exempt
it's a
from,
typo. It's a typo.
are not exempt from, and must also comply with rules and regulations imposed by, okay. So I'm gonna change this to that. Okay, and that's it for that ordinance. Hey, that was not too painful.
So are you
Um,
waiting for a motion on this, Martha?
Yes, I am.
I will make a motion to accept with the recommended changes. The parking, what are we calling this? Permitted parking lot ordinance 161-8.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. You might want to stay here because golf carts is next. Aha.
Alrighty, right here.
Come on, Wayne.
We're here for golf carts. All right, let me just move my papers around and get my golf carts up. Okay, golf cart rules and regulations. So we're changing basically it from going from the Soundview golf cart rules and regulations to the town of Old Lyme golf cart rules and regulations, because it's going to affect more than just our one area. It will also affect Ox Nest. And so we have a definition, which I think we're good with,
Mhm.
although, do I have Mike's comments on mine?
Mike commented that we should take out no other recreational vehicle types are allowed.
Thank you for having that copy.
I think we should leave it in. To make it clear, you know, that ATVs are not allowed.
Judy, you
think
good with that?
I
Leaving it?
agree with, leave it in.
Yep. Because Mike doesn't live down there.
You have
And
a
what's
golf
the
cart
next?
that'll
I'm
take an
sorry, I don't
ATV.
have that copy, so you're gonna have to
Yeah.
be my other set of eyes. What was the other change that he wanted to make on that?
He said, perhaps label the title, perhaps label this rules for operation of golf carts on designated town of Lyme, town of Old Lyme, accepted public roads.
Oh, in the second sentence where it says Soundview Town of Old Lyme Golf Cart Rules.
Actually, right, no, that's actually the title, the
In the
very,
heading.
very top.
Oh, at the title. Okay,
Yeah.
so he wants it called Town of Old Lyme what?
Rules for operation of golf carts on designated town of Old Lyme, accepted
Rules.
roads.
Okay. Let's see it again. Sorry. I had enough coffee. Rules for operation of golf carts on designated town of Old Lyme accepted public roads. That's a mouthful.
That
Okay.
works.
All right. So then we have our registration form, which I will review quick. I'll review that just to make sure that we've checked all of our things. According to Mike, the equipment verification, he does not feel that this is, and I did pull the section yesterday, and I don't know if I brought it with me. I did not, but I cannot find anything in the Connecticut general statutes that says that all this equipment has to be on a golf cart.
But I didn't find anything in the statutes that prohibits a town or a traffic authority from requiring.
Right. So if we should be allowed to add what the town would require.
Okay, so I think it should say then equipment verification per town of Old Lyme.
Right.
Okay,
And then let's just look down the list: locking brake, main power switch, headlights, brake lights, turn signals, seat belts, windshield, front and rear reflectors, horn, rear view mirror, and an ID plate and or decal and flag issued upon successful equipment verification. So,
what's Martha, I remember hearing someone wanted to add, it's not part of the equipment, but use of a car seat when needed.
I don't know if they can be installed correctly. In a
I
golf cart.
question that.
I think I think that got misinterpreted. Well, Officer Collins was saying to make sure that they're not putting car seats in there.
Okay,
No
That's
car
better.
seats are
Thank you.
permitted. Yes.
Okay.
no car seats are permitted. Okay,
I couldn't imagine how they were going to make it work, so thank you.
it's probably something on Amazon, Jude. I'm sure we could find it.
An invention.
All right, so we want to keep all of those things in place.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to bring up a point at the end, all right, so we continue to go through and, did Mike have anything else to say on that page? No. I think
Not
he
on
was
that,
good.
not on
Okay.
that page.
When it gets to operation, it says restricted to operators with a valid and current motor vehicles operator's license, no learner permits. I agree with that.
Mhm.
He had something about this
You
section,
just said insert state, so it would be in current state motor vehicles,
current state motor
motor
vehicle.
vehicle operator's license.
Okay. Then we adhere to 1430G. He didn't have any problems with the 1430G or the 14227A in speed limits. You're shaking your head. You've memorized these? You got these down?
227.
All right. We made one change just basically under golf cart owners where we talked about the town of Old Lyme. And we switched everything out from Soundview Commission to town of Old Lyme and also the town roads. All right, then we have no towing of any items or objects. Golf carts must adhere to all parking regulations set forth by the town of Old Lyme. Parking spaces are available on Hartford Avenue and a small area in Hawks Nest Beach. There was some discussion that we could also allow a golf cart in the lot. Do you want that? Or, I mean, that's up to you.
I think if the golf cart spots are taken, as long as they're adhering to the regular pay for park, and I don't see an issue with that personally,
That works.
unless somebody else has a different idea
Yep.
about it. I don't see an issue with it.
Nope.
But we're not issuing parking passes for golf carts.
No.
Well, we're trying to decide how we're going to do this. Okay, because that's the part that we have to come up with a plan, because we didn't realize until yesterday, I did not realize that yesterday, that actually, if you had the hanging tag, you could move it from your car to your golf cart.
That's going to,
Right,
And that, I think, becomes a problem.
right.
Right.
I think now it does.
So we have to come up with something that we can give them to move forward with. All right. Is there anything on that page for Mike?
Under no towing, just where we were.
Yeah.
it said, perhaps insert applicable to motor vehicles, so it would read, golf carts must adhere to all parking regulations applicable to motor vehicles set forth by the town of Old Lyme.
All parking regulations applicable to the town.
Applicable to motor vehicles set forth by the town of Old Lyme.
Set forth. Lyme. Okay. And then we'll add, if golf cart spots are taken, the public lot can be used. Okay. The next bullet point is permission to operate within the acceptable areas within the town of Old Lyme. I don't know if we need that second sentence, which you said oh no, we're going to continue that. It's non-transfer, non-assignable. Okay, access to Soundview area roads from adjacent beach communities must be through Pond Road from the west or Hartung Place from the east. You're good with that?
Mhm.
I'm
Yes.
Yeah, what?
I'm good with it. Carrie has a comment and says, is this still necessary for permit operation on town roads outside SV? I think it is. Because if you're coming from, Old Lyme Shores or wherever you're coming from in a golf cart, that the only way you can get into Soundview will still be on those two roads. That's the only way to safely enter
Right.
Soundview. You can't come down Shore Road.
And Hawks
No.
Nest can get through Miami
Right,
to there.
right,
However, they can't when the gates are locked.
right. But that's
Monday through Friday afternoon, it's accessible to them.
right.
And they'll have to work out their own deals with Miami. That's not us
a
to
town
work.
problem.
Okay, all right. No operation on or across Route 156 unless further approval from the State Department of Transportation is given to the town of Old Lyme. I tried to find the actual statute that I believe Devin Carney put in, but I think it's attached to another one, so it doesn't come up easily in the state, but I think we need to refer to it then. That he got the three, I think there's 3 crossings from, is it Portland, Swan?
It was attached to I believe it was a public act from 2 years ago.
Yes,
So we'll have to look for that because I don't think there's a statute number.
I can write to
associated
him,
with it.
but I think that needs to be called out in here.
Yes.
So I'm
Yes.
gonna ask Devin to give me the public act. I can't find it in the files for Soundview.
The general rule of thumb is you can cross 156, you can't go along 156.
Right. And that's why it says no operation on or across 156 unless further approval. But then I'd like to call out this public act and put it in there.
I think Frank might have those designated streets because I know he worked with.
Yeah, he does. Frank, you're online, but do you have the public act number?
Yeah, actually, I don't have it in front of me, but I do have the information, so I can provide that to you. And I did work with Devin on that, and it was for
Right.
just crossing from, just crossing a perpendicular on Route 156.
Okay,
Martha, mine reads unless future, not unless further approval.
thank you. You're right.
Thanks. Okay,
Typo.
yep.
Okay,
Should just take that part out. Unless
Right, we don't
further
need
approval.
it.
we don't need it,
Yeah,
right?
we don't need it, and if the state decides that it's gonna be 30 miles an hour now, something that opens up Shore Road.
So no
Okay.
operation on or across 156 Shore Road unless
Except
it's covered under, except for those roads covered under the
Right,
public
public
act.
act. Okay, great.
Okay. All right. All right. Bottom of the page, there is no change. Golf carts are allowed. We have listed every street covered. I am going to put them in alphabetical order for easy read.
Okay.
A to Z.
Great.
They also, then jurisdiction and authority that we are, it's actually me, legal traffic authority, but it's fine, LTA. Empowered to be so by the laws of the state, authority. Use of golf carts within the jurisdiction noted in the regulation section of the ordinance in accordance with section 14-30G. And
It's
then
30G, mine says 14300G.
it is, sorry, I'm reading too
Okay.
quickly.
Okay.
Following conditions pertaining golf carts, operation of golf carts within the town of Old Lyme selected areas, rules document. The rest is just really changing out Sound View to Town of
Mhm.
Old Lyme. It talks about a rear view mirror device. Those are already noted in the equipment verification, so I'm not sure, do we have to put them again? I think a horn and the rear view mirror are noted in 14-300G, but I do not think like the seat belts, though we've put them on under equipment verification. I don't understand why we need this conditions twice.
There's some, I mean, it may not be the most elegant, but there's additional detail here, like the placement of a flag. It has, dimensions.
Where does that,
Placement of a flag on the left rear of the golf cart that at a minimum reaches a
Right.
height of 7 inches from the ground and meets standards set forth and blah, blah, blah.
yes,
the
that part
whole-
I understand. I'm talking about more now under 4 and 5, because they are called in, the golf cart must be equipped with.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to understand why we have located those two things twice, 3 times. We have the horn, we have the seat belts listed, and we have a rear view mirror all listed under equipment verification.
Well, sometimes it doesn't hurt to repetition. We're only talking about having a few words repeated twice. And I think there's no harm in it. It reinforces it.
To give Matt and Wayne,
Yes, exactly.
really throwing the book at them.
No,
Well,
two
extra
places.
enforcement,
Yeah.
extra enforcement. Okay. And then it
Enough.
just goes to the next page. It says, about number 7, registration of invalid. Following conditions must be satisfied, and I think that's fine. It calls it out again. Operators must, again, we're calling this out again. Mr. Resident State Trooper Weber would like us to take out, well, actually, I think it was Mike Carey who said we don't need to put all of, or was it you? You took it off.
Yeah.
He doesn't think we need to, we're just saying obey all state and local traffic regulations regarding operation of motor vehicles, period.
That's
And
fine.
that means you're not doing anything that you're not supposed to. Can't be under alcohol and drugs.
Yep.
And again, not drive on or across 156. We have repeated this a multitude of times. So then we get to the registration period and fees.
Correct.
And also, you want to also put in as far as we talk about
Driving after dusk.
driving after dusk. So you would like operators not to nighttime?
I believe that's right in the statute.
I thought
That-
it was.
So before we
I think
permitted
it
it,
is.
but in according to the new statute, they can't drive at night. So that's where I believe the town has to make a recommendation for us to enforce.
No night driving. Do you want, is that okay? No driving after dusk or just no driving, night
Don't-
driving at night?
Dusk to dawn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No driving dusk to dawn.
My question there is, what is dusk? Is that sunset, or is there a defined period of time that makes it dusk?
Because a gray cloudy day, dusk comes a lot earlier.
Right.
I mean, is it from sunset until sunrise?
That could be late too.
Yeah, sometimes it's very late. We're getting close to 9 o'clock at night. Is it
Right.
from 6 in the morning until 8 in the evening, except if sunset is prior to 8 o'clock? I
We
don't mean
can't
to
say
be
9 o'clock. We
nitpicky.
can't say after the lock because when the lock closes
Right.
in August,
dark.
it's already dark. So
Sunrise to sunset, does that sound better? It's more,
I like that. I know dusk may be a little before sunset, and I think the number of days we have where sunset is close to 9 o'clock are not many.
another,
I'm still going through your notes. No inspect, oh yeah, we'll talk about
Well,
that.
how about we set hours for the summer? Like, and June, July and August, no operating between 10 and 6 a.m., 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.
No, 10 p.m.'s
10
dark.
is too late.
Well, I'm thinking about people getting out of the carousel,
Carousel
the
closes at
Ketos.
9.
yeah.
Ice cream
So-
store closes at 10 though, Martha.
Oh,
I don't know if we want a bunch of carts buzzing around
No.
late at night.
Yeah,
I agree with
that's
that.
when we've seen trouble in Portland when they're like 2 a.m. drunk.
Right.
days.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Product.
I would say
golf
no
carts.
later than 9. And if it's a nice night and people aren't.
if you put no later than 9, that's a loophole. Because you say sunrise to sunset, and then you say no later than 9. Then
Well-
you've got a whole loophole because sunset could be at 7:45.
Right.
And now so you don't want to give the loophole. Sunrise to sunset, I think is, it's sort of like your mother. You're supposed to be home by the
Right.
time the sun goes down.
Streetlights come on.
Streetlights come on, you gotta go home. I don't,
So prohibited sunset to sunrise or
Right.
allowed sunrise to sunset.
That works. And I know it's a moving target because sunrise to sunset changes, but it gives you a little flexibility. And if somebody is out after 9 o'clock, you can say, hey, sunset tonight was 8. You guys.
Right. Yeah.
okay, so now we get into, all right, so we're good with that, right?
Yes.
Okay, we're not gonna. All right. When we get into the registration period and fee. So this is where it's getting tricky. Because
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna set a fee, supposedly between the town of Old Lyme and the resident state troopers fee. We have made no, we haven't created a pass. We could use our parking permits, although I think that gets a little sticky, even though they're stick on. Because again, people could they adhere it to their windshield, which is supposed to be part of their golf cart. But do we want the same parking pass? Do we want something a little different? Are we going to have some time? I'm almost thinking that for this current year, because a lot of people have to bring their golf carts up to standards, that we give them a parking pass for free this year, only because they're going to have to put their golf carts into compliance, and some of those people are going to have great expense to do so. It's just something. And then, so we were thinking, I think they were charging $25 or $30 in the past, thinking about going to $50 for this year. Last year, there was a 3-year pass given out for $75 per year. Some of those people already have that pass. So this is where we're kind of in that state of flux, and there has to be some discussion. The Old Line Police Department would prefer not to be doing inspections on these because they are not certified to do inspections on a motor vehicle. This is not a simple check off list. You could say that you have brakes and you can prove that you do quickly. But who is going to do the inspections? And I did call the person who runs the place over in Saybrook. He has not returned my call. I spoke to one of his employees and they said they'd have him call me back. I have not spoken to him. He was off yesterday. So how are we going to do this? And am I going down to inspect golf carts? Because I don't have any. Anybody have any thoughts how we do this for this year?
Matt or Wayne, do you recommend someone you might know in your network who is qualified? That
I
is
don't.
not an employee of yours now that we could hire?
I mean, we could see if a local mechanic would do it, one of our, maybe like All Pro or Rand Automotive, maybe they would be willing to sign off on it. They're both local.
Yeah.
And they're qualified, I would think. Yeah.
They're ACE certified mechanics, or however you pronounce it. That might be a little better.
Okay.
I like that idea. I also think maybe we would hire them as an individual if it made it easier for the business. So they did not have to get involved.
As a contractor?
Yeah, as a contractor / consultant, and we have designated inspection periods or times.
So where would we, okay, so I don't have a problem setting that up, but where are we going to pay this person from? Which account?
We
I
have
might have,
something,
I might have a little bit in
Right.
part-time under Selectmen's office. I'm assuming it won't be too expensive.
at least
yes.
not between
What-
now and the end of the year.
Wouldn't the person registering be responsible
That's
for
what I
all
would
fees
say.
to that mechanic? So the
You-
town would not incur any cost for this.
So you want, okay, so we would ask the person to go, like, I'm thinking like the
Right.
little Hawk's Nest parking area would be perfect for inspections. And we can set up some times there. We can also set up some inspections down at the parking lot before it officially opens on Memorial Day weekend. So we can create a checklist with all the things that we say this has to be done. Give it to so-called inspector. They sign off on it. They pay the inspector
Right.
based on whatever the inspector wants. And then
They get their permit.
they get their permit.
It's sort of like when we go to have your emissions tested and then
Yeah.
you have proof
Correct.
that you've done it.
Okay, but now are we charging them for the permit this year? If so, what? And what should it look like? Why are the flags important, or why were the flags important in the past? Because you asked for flags.
I think for
Visibility.
Yes.
They
Martha,
can see if somebody's coming between cars.
So with the permit, they would get a flag,
Right.
okay?
Well,
Right? You gotta pass the inspection. You go ahead unless you see
but
something.
the flag is part of the general statute, so they need to have a flag anyway. So it's just my personal thing.
They
We-
don't get the flag until they get the permit.
Well, they have to have that flag anyway to be
right.
pass inspection.
Okay.
Well, it's
So
not
we-
on this
so
in
list.
other words, we're not
So
gonna
we
get
should-
involved providing
that
the
sh-
flags.
That should be on the list because it's part of the general statutes. And so there's no reason that we should have to procure flags for them.
Okay. So we're not gonna get it. So what kind of a permit would be easily visible for you?
And I think anything fixated like on the front windshield, because a lot of
Mhm.
these, they don't necessarily have rear view mirrors where you hang something off. It would be like a side mirror that would constitute a rear view mirror. So
And how many years do you want the permit for? 1 year only? Because last year you were giving out 3-year permits. And those people who bought a $75 permit last year we have to
She's right.
grandfather them
Grandfather
in.
them in, correct. Well, what does DMV do every 2 years?
Yeah, they're 2 years now.
Maybe just
Every 2
every
years.
2 years?
And
Are
Martha,
we-
they have 2 years remaining on their 3-year, correct? So we're not excluding anyone.
Right.
So I think that would bring it all in alignment.
Well, I think we may make a line that if you had a 3-year permit last year, you're covered. That's
Right,
the,
right.
and then we can take that out.
Or
in-
currently valid permits remain valid. Basically, we won't invalidate permit that's not
Existing.
expired.
Yep.
So current valid permits are covered under this ordinance.
And I think we have to charge for the new permits because the ones who've already paid 2 years have prepaid.
Okay, so what would we like I think then we're gonna have to stick to $25 a year for this next 2
Yes.
years, because that's what, so it's $25 per year.
Mm-hmm.
And who's collecting, so basically they get the sign off from the inspector. They bring the
Correct.
signed form to town hall,
Right,
and then town hall is gonna issue them a permit.
Same way you do
Correct.
beach passes.
exactly.
Okay. And what we'll do, they have to have a license plate or some kind of a registration.
Soundview, they have a special Soundview license plate right now.
But I don't want to give those out to everybody.
I don't think we need them anymore as long as they have the
stickers.
permit affixed to the windshield.
Right.
Right, so
Yeah.
I'll have Michelle reserve a certain number of permits for golf carts. And we will give you a list of those permits. I think 50 will do. Do you think 50s?
So, Frank, how many do we have permitted now? Do you know the answer to that?
I think there's about 17 or 18 permitted currently. And by the way, there is some money in operating budget of Soundview Commission for golf carts, so that could be used
Okay.
for inspections or something of that nature.
Okay,
Martha, maybe make it 60 now that the rules are a little broader about the use. People, they might become more popular.
oh, 60 permits?
Yeah, just to be safe. We don't want to get caught at the end of the summer.
That's more than doubling though, from what we have. I mean,
Well,
Well,
I
it's
don't-
not Soundview, we gotta do Hawks Nest
yeah,
too.
the Fox
And
Nest isn't.
they've got like, I would say they've got 25 active golf carts on there. I mean,
you're up to 40.
Miami
I've been
Beach,
shoveling down there. I can just about turn around down
and
there.
everyone in Miami Beach would want to operate.
Yeah, I
course.
think you're gonna
Box
see a
nest.
big percentage of that increase. They're gonna
Well,
go
what-
out and buy them.
I think so too. They're going to become more popular
Exactly.
I'd
because
love
they'll
to
have
be able,
broader use.
Right.
I'd love to be able to do a sticker that has the
Mhm.
years and you just punch it
Mhm.
for the years that it's good. I'll have to see what we can come up with quickly. Now, is there going to be a grace period to get these because it is now May 7th? And to get everyone, to get the
Mhm.
inspections done, everything else, are we giving them the grace period of June? Can we say?
I
Or
think it should be, yeah.
I'm fine
I'd
with
say
that.
June, because some people don't even come down here until school gets out.
Exactly.
The only recommendation I have with that is they don't have to drive a golf cart right now. It's no different if I buy a car and it's not going to pass registration. Like the state's not going to give me a grace period. Oh, you can drive without any headlights or anything. So that's the
Yeah.
only thing I would be wary of is they don't have to drive a golf cart right now. They could wait until it gets fully operational. So I don't know if there's any liability in the town. You may want to talk to the attorney about that. If we're just saying, yeah, go ahead, we're going to give you a grace period. And in the meantime, there's no headlights and they're driving at dusk and they
Yeah.
get
That's a
can
good
get into
point.
an accident.
Now
That's a
we're trying
good
to
point.
figure out who.
I agree with that.
It
if you have-
incentivizes them too.
I appreciate all of this, but you just wait. The phone's gonna be ringing on my desk.
That's what we're here for.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna do. I don't think there's any, the only thing is contacting us, Town of Old Lyme, rules, registrations. What about fines? What are our fines gonna be? Because they can't ticket. And I put this as effective as June 3rd but I can change that to. It has to be June 3rd because it has to be
Right.
15 days after May 19th.
Mhm.
So tickets and fines, what do you want to do for tickets and fines?
So I have no comment on that for the price amount. So the question I did have is, like, so somebody's driving down Lime Street, right? We're at 25 miles an hour. So do we have different fine amounts? So because, hey, I'm not permitted to be on this. So is there a different fine for this? Is there a different fine for equipment violation that we fine? What do we do with that? You know, we're gonna tow it on Lime Street. So that's what I think. That's probably the biggest part right here today is what we're doing with the fines.
So what about, so do you want you, and of course, it would probably be easier for you to keep the fines the same as
So
if possible.
right now, we have a $90 fine for alcohol and parking. So everything is kind of across the board.
What if you have an invalid registration?
Exactly.
Is
So
that $90?
no, that's
We
not
don't
a,
have
that's not a town ticket. That'd be a state ticket.
Okay,
So everything on our town tickets is $90, except
Why
for
don't we
parking.
leave it? Let's leave it at that.
okay, $90 and the violations are,
Right.
No.
So we have to have the unregulated areas of operation. So unless you're on one of those specific roads, you're going to get a $90 fine.
Except where, isn't there an allowance, maybe I'm wrong, where I see them go from Mile Creek or from Black Hall Club or to the country club, they get a pass, just one-time maintenance service, storage, something? Are you familiar with that, Matt?
I'm not exactly familiar with that, but we definitely have to look into that too.
I know I think there's a special ordinance, a special clause in something with the Old Lyme Country Club where they can cross over McCurdy.
Cross, not like drive, right? Yeah.
They,
So
Yeah.
they can cross from the entrance over towards the tennis
Of
courts there.
course. But for
And-
some reason, I think either in the fall and the spring, I see a line of them go down Mile Creek headed to Black Hall. I don't know if people store them there or what the agreement is. So would they contact the town hall? I mean, it would be a special circumstances. So I don't think it needs to be written in. It just have to be getting permission.
Right. All right, so unregulated areas of operation, no no sticker.
correct. And they have the hours of operation,
Hours of operation,
equipment
Mhm.
violation.
equipment
Yes,
violation. Anything else?
I mean, you could get really into this with
Well,
reckless.
no, but the reckless is going to be a state ticket. So don't forget, these are just the regulations that
For us in
for
the
us,
area.
like all the 300s, the 14 statutes, we're writing them a regular state ticket.
Right, okay.
So this would
Okay.
just be like the hours operation, the unregulated area, because technically they're allowed to drive anywhere in the state of Connecticut under 25, but we are creating an ordinance, so they're not going to be on Lime Street. So
Okay,
that's where we have to come up with our specific statutes.
gotcha.
Matt, what tools do you have if someone takes an ATV down Lime Street,
As far as
like enforcement? Or
it depends on if they run on us or not. Like we can't be chasing them, but luckily we don't have those problems right now. So, but yeah, they're problematic. And so that's something else like what they do in the cities. Hey, if you're driving a golf cart on Lime Street and you shouldn't, okay, maybe the first offense is a warning, then a ticket, and maybe the third offense is we impound your golf cart, your low speed vehicle. So that's something to also think about here. Like after so many offenses, if you're a repeat offender, the town is going to impound it maybe. I mean, either way, it's gonna be for us an unregistered motor vehicle, so it's gonna get towed
And that would be
anyway.
towed.
But if you're gonna make ordinances like that, you could also add that on for a repeat offender. Just food
Okay.
for thought.
So repeat offender,
Third offense, impounding vehicle.
third offense is impounding, second offense 200 or
Well, the first one would be 90, so
Right.
whatever
And
you
then
guys.
180 maybe,
decide.
double it.
sure. And third offense, we impound it,
Right.
and then they can appeal.
Mhm.
There'll be an appeal process. I suppose I have to put the same language in
Right.
about the, all right,
Do we want to do anything about inclement weather operation? Seeing how we are not required to have windshield wipers, I don't believe. Or was that on the checklist? I know
I'm looking.
there's a lot going on there.
think so.
I can't remember if they were required to be on there or not.
Windshield. It doesn't say anything
No
about,
wipers.
So what do we want to do about inclement weather operation with a golf cart?
any thoughts on inclement weather?
I would say not for me.
I can't imagine that many people. You might get a handful driving around.
I mean, guaranteed, we can have a thunderstorm come up. We're gonna make
Right.
the allowance there.
Right.
Because they're
Right.
somewhere and they gotta get home. But, so no operating, geez, Louise. No operating during inclement weather.
And that's gonna be one of those days where it's raining nonstop
Right.
and it just, what are you doing, you know?
Yeah, goofing
It's not
around.
gonna be
in
for
each
the
other.
summer thunderstorm where everyone's rushing to get home.
Well,
Okay.
they can be, we can make a suggestion perhaps if they're out there doing it that
Right.
they shouldn't
Correct.
be.
Okay. So this. What I would like to do with this one, because this one's got a lot of moving parts. And I'm gonna go back in and start rewriting it. Not rewriting, but revising it and making all the changes into a new draft. But can we make a motion to say that we will approve the motion once the drafts have been read and I receive an email from all parties, and that includes resident state trooper Matt Weber, Jim, Jude, myself, and the town attorney.
I'm fine with that.
So
I'll make a motion that we approve the golf cart ordinance with all the changes we indicated today, pending final sign off on final draft from resident state trooper, board of selectmen, and town attorney Carey.
just say
I'll
town
sec-
attorney.
I'll second that, Martha and Jim.
Thank you, Jude. Okay, any further discussion? And I'll get the passes from Michelle set up and all that stuff. We'll work on that. And I'll try to get some educational verbiage out to Nancy O'Brien at Hawks Nest as well as Frank at Soundview so that you can get it out to your members. Okay, I'm not gonna send you the draft of the ordinance though until I get this typed and it gets signed off, and hopefully we'll have that done by, I'd really like it done by next week. We're gonna vote on this. On putting, so we're moving it to town meeting. So we'll vote on this, but I need to get this moving because I'm not here Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week. So I gotta get this done. All right, all those in favor of the motion as is, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. And I have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, we are adjourning at 12:30. Thank you both for your time today. I appreciate it greatly. And we'll keep moving forward.